I want to warn y'all, I'm going to be getting mad about Quidditch in this video. Like, if I was in Snape's shoes and I knew about Lupin's past with Sirius Black, would I be suspicious of him? Gryffindor had to forfeit in Harry's first year when Harry was in a coma. Hello everybody and welcome back. I feel like I've got that intro down to a rhythm now. Guys, this chapter 9, Grim Defeat. If you'll remember in our last video about chapter 8, I talked about how I didn't think I would have too much to talk about, and I might have to join this chapter with another one. That was until I read it. I mean, I always am wary of the Quidditch chapters because there's only so much I can say about the games, but dang, this chapter was full of stuff, and I'm excited to talk about it, as usual. If you're new here, welcome to our Harry Potter book club where we're going through every single Harry Potter book one chapter at a time. It's connected to my editing website, madisonkdarby.com, and you can find that here. I have social media handles located below if you'd like to join our little community. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can be updated when any new videos come out. I have my tea today. That's what I am drinking. I'm drinking a Somm tea. You guys, I get this tea sampler from the company Taylor's. You can get it on Amazon for like $11. It has like 50 tea bags in it and it's tons of different kinds. You know what? This isn't an ad. I'm gonna link that below because if you like tea, get this sampler because I think I love every single one that's in it. It's got a really good chamomile, some English breakfast, both normal and then decaf. And then it has this, a Somm tea, and this is my mug for today. It says greater is he with 1 John 4:4 on it. I got it from a lady who I go to church with and I think it's just lovely, but yeah, the tea. Anyway, in chapter 9, Grim Defeat, Sirius Black has just attacked the fat lady, which is a huge deal. And now the entirety of Hogwarts is just having this like huge slumber party in the Great Hall. And as I was thinking about this, did the Gryffindors even get to like get any pajamas? Are they brushing their teeth, showering? Like, I'm just thinking about the logistics here because we already have a room full of smelly teenagers, but now we have a lack of showers, which makes it even worse. From what I just read, it says they got into their sleeping bags fully dressed. So see, even Rowling was thinking of these things. All the kids are just buzzing about Sirius Black and wondering how he got in, why he chose Halloween to attack because everyone would have been at the feast. For us, we know why. He didn't want anyone to be up in the common room so he could have his revenge and all of that. So just another clue for us to look back on at the end of the book. We get an interesting conversation between Snape and Dumbledore. Snape approaches Dumbledore and references a conversation that they both had at the beginning of the year and how Snape doesn't trust a certain someone. And you know what? From all that we get from that conversation, he straight up says like, when you appointed, like, I feel like Harry, Ron, and Hermione should have understood that he was talking about Lupin because I thought it was pretty obvious. Maybe it's just because we know what happens at the end of the book and we know how Snape feels about Lupin. But what's even more important about this scene to me is that we see Snape doesn't really trust Lupin. And you know what? I can't blame him. Like, I think a lot of Snape's actions are driven by the spite that he has for the Marauders, the things that they did to him when he was in school, which is valid. But then he is also thinking that, you know, Sirius did this thing, that he killed Peter Pettigrew, he sold out the Potters, he did all this stuff, and why he might not really understand why he did those things. You know, you have to look at Lupin, who was one of his best friends, and, you know, I'm just thinking, like, if I was in Snape's shoes and I knew about Lupin's past with Sirius Black, would I be suspicious of him, especially if Sirius Black was able to get into Hogwarts, which is supposed to be, like, impossible to do. People do it a few times in the series, but whatever. I think I might be suspicious of Lupin. Plus, there's just a really bad view of werewolves, which is unfortunate, especially for somebody like Lupin who's trying to control his condition and, you know, like not taking advantage of it and not wanting to kill people, basically. But yeah, I don't know. It was just interesting putting myself in Snape's head because, as we know, I try to do it, but I am unsuccessful often. After this point, Harry has a lot of teachers and staff who are being overprotective of him because Sirius Black just broke into the school and they all think he's after Harry. And maybe Harry is just like used to the constant danger at this point, but he doesn't seem even a little bit afraid of this. And honestly, besides like being in the vault with Voldemort and being down in the Chamber of Secrets, which are places he went there of his own volition, he wasn't spending that entire school year fearing specifically being attacked by someone who is after him on purpose. Like, this is the first time that has happened. But then in this book, I don't know, I feel like he should be a tiny bit concerned because a mass murderer who everyone thinks is after him has succeeded in breaking into the school and is presumably trying to kill him. And Harry's just annoyed at the teachers for following him in the hallway. Like, Harry, let them follow you. Do you not want some extra protection? Maybe it's because he's 13. Like, we always got to bring that into the conversation. And he wants to be strong, but honestly, I think he seems more afraid of the Grim here than he does of Sirius Black. He meets with Professor McGonagall, and McGonagall starts to say that maybe like he shouldn't practice Quidditch. And after he like protests like 1 second, she's like, you know, you're right, Quidditch is too important. Like, I love McGonagall's view of Quidditch in these books. And you know, McGonagall herself, she was a pretty good Quidditch player back in the day when she was at Hogwarts. Okay, moving on. I want to warn y'all, I'm going to be getting mad about Quidditch in this video. As I was typing up my notes here, I just felt myself like I kept getting hung up on these little details about Quidditch that were making me frustrated. Like, to start, I just don't know what the rhyme or reason is for canceling these games. Like, Slytherin is allowed to cancel the match without any consequences because of Malfoy's arm. Now, I understand an injury. We know Malfoy's is fake, but let's say it wasn't. Like, I would understand if they cancel for one of their key players being injured, because they'd have to forfeit, apparently, because, I don't know, I get confused about that too. Sometimes they forfeit if they're missing a player, I don't know. The reason I'm saying this, Gryffindor had to forfeit in Harry's first year when Harry was in a coma for 3 days, right? It might have been longer. He was in a coma at the end of his first year, and they had to forfeit the game. And yet, like, Slytherin's allowed to do this. Now, I've been thinking about this because, like, is it because the games are at the beginning of the season and they have time to make them up? Because obviously, like, Harry, when he was hurt, that was at the end of the year when the Quidditch Cup would have been. And you don't really have much time to cancel and reschedule and all of that. Like, is that why? Forget the fact that maybe they could have gotten somebody to replace Harry for one game, but we're not talking about that today. We're just talking about canceling games. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the timing. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Like, and then Harry goes on to say they won't cancel for trifles like storms, but they will for a fake hurt arm. And I know, like, they're gonna believe the kid. But if Quidditch is so serious that they're not gonna cancel for weather that is deadly, I mean, you get struck by lightning. They have that in the movie, right? Second, you're not gonna cancel because the Seeker's in a coma. I don't understand why they don't do like a medical exam to check the authenticity of this. If it's just an arm, it's a trifle to me. Like, oh. So Oliver is freaking out because they're gonna be playing Hufflepuff. Oh, these scenes. I've already told y'all Oliver Wood, he makes me laugh. But he's rushing around in between classes, talking to the players and telling them, you know, about the game plan and what they need to know and strategy and stuff like that. We get the most passive-aggressive class from Snape ever. And man, he was feeling it. He's covering for Professor Lupin because he's ill with the full moon fever, you know. And so Snape is going to be covering his class, and he has them go over werewolves because, you know, from the questions that he's asking them and the things that he's saying to them, he wants them to find out that Lupin is a werewolf on their own. Now, here's a question that kind of relates to something we were talking about just a couple of minutes ago. Is Snape doing this because he dislikes him, or because he is suspicious and he wants to have some sort of excuse for him to leave? Or both? I think that it's kind of both. I honestly, I had never really considered the fact that Snape might be motivated by his suspicions for Lupin, which it makes me sound really unfair towards Snape, which is why I'm glad that we're looking at this and we're doing a more in-depth read this time around. But I also wonder if Snape was preparing these kids for the reveal that Snape would make. Like, I think that Snape, when he tells everyone that Lupin is a werewolf, is driven by these heightened emotions that he's feeling, because, you know, he wants, like, Sirius to get the Dementor's kiss and, like, die. Like, he's feeling pretty emotional there, and then he escapes and gets away, and Snape is mad. Doesn't excuse what he does, but what I'm saying is I don't know for a fact if he was planning on revealing this information about Lupin, but he had to have thought about it. And the reason I'm talking about this is because at the end of class, he says he's wanting the kids to write a report on how to recognize and kill werewolves. You know, it's not just an informative piece on werewolves in general, it's how to kill them, which, you know, just reinforces the extremely negative view that the wizarding world has for people who are suffering with this condition. And so it makes you just really think, like, with the topic the kids would be writing about, was Snape trying to mentally prepare them to dislike Lupin and view him as a creature that they have to know how to kill? You know, when it comes to Snape in this class, though, besides, like, the detention that he gives Ron and what he has him do, I thought that Snape was pretty tame with his punishments in this class. Like, those kids were talking back to him like crazy. Like, I get where the kids were coming from, but, you know, Snape is punished for far less, so I was surprised by that. Next, we have the day of the match, and Peeves wakes up Harry by blowing in his ear. Not a good omen. Harry experiences a couple of omens during this day. The game is rough, but honestly, I really enjoyed reading about it. Just the struggles that Harry's going through and you know, all the action that happens in the game. It was interesting. Harry, like, can't see for the first half of the game until, like, Hermione comes up and messes with his glasses. Then when Harry finally can see, he sees the Grim in the stands. And man, Sirius is reckless, but I think that it's really sweet. He obviously has an interest in Harry coming to see him in Magnolia Crescent, and even though he has a mission, like, I think he would take any opportunity to see Harry. And, you know, this is just a moment for him to see Harry doing something that his father, James, loved. I think Sirius would have given anything to see James play Quidditch again, or just to hear him talk about it. And, you know, thinking about how James would have enjoyed watching Harry's games. Oh, I'm getting emotional over here. Like, I just really enjoy thinking from Sirius's perspective when he's in these moments. Like, what does he, you know, dwell on when he is watching Harry do this? But while Sirius might be having a good time, Harry is more freaked out than ever because he's just so happened to have two near-death experiences right after seeing the Grim. So, you know, we have this further confirmation that the Grim is, one, real, at least in Harry's mind, and two, dangerous, and that Harry is in danger, and that there's just this negative, deadly aura surrounding him and just, like, creeping in. And Harry is just feeling a lot of stress this year. Then the Dementors come to the game. Gosh, I hate those things. Like, how could the Ministry have ever thought that that was a good idea? Not only to send them to guard a school, I'm not even just talking about that, just having them as guards to control a prison. I mentioned this a while ago when we were talking about Dementors, and I'll put it down here again in the description box. You should really read the article about Azkaban and how Dementors were instituted in that prison, and just how horrible it was and controversial and just terrible. This time, Harry realizes that the voice that he's been hearing upon, you know, seeing a Dementor is his mom in her final moments protecting him. We're going to be talking about this more in the next couple of chapters. When Harry begins practicing Expecto Patronum with Lupin, something I have been itching to cover in this book. I have an article already planned about Expecto Patronum and what it means and represents, and it's going to be fun. But anyway, we're going to be talking about Harry and Lily a bit more then. But I just cannot even imagine or comprehend what Harry is going through here. You know, he handles it better than I would have expected. Or maybe Harry just doesn't even know what to feel about it. He seems to feel really numb every time we see him contemplate this going forward. But yeah, just horrible. Harry wakes up in the hospital wing and finds out what happened at the match. Oh, last Quidditch rant of the video, I promise. They tell him that Hufflepuff won, that Cedric Diggory caught the snitch, and that Hufflepuff won fair and square. Harry gets screwed over by the system over and over again in these Quidditch matches. What? Like, look, I get that you can argue that, like, Cedric was on the tail of the snitch. He was getting close to catching it. Harry was too. They were both going after the snitch, and whoever, one of the twins is telling Harry what happened. And what he says is Cedric caught the snitch right after Harry fell. Well, passing out just doesn't I mean, there's a couple of seconds before it happens. So this means Harry was going. He realized the Dementors were there, probably slowed up a little bit, because he was feeling the effects, and then passed out. I think there's a good chance Harry could have gotten the snitch. Am I wrong about this? Was Cedric just right on top of it? Would he have caught it anyway? I guess that's the question, but I think that the situation is too close to just say, they won fair and square, and then they say even Wood admitted it. I call some crap on that. Wood would have still been fighting with them about this if there had been any question, which also it's hard because we aren't there. We can't see what's happening. So if Wood is saying this, maybe it was fair and square. Maybe Cedric was close enough, but from the way it was written, it seemed like Harry actually had a chance. And once again, Harry, I don't know, it doesn't matter what happens to him. He's gonna lose if it's even close and he almost dies. I'm with Cedric on this. There should have been a rematch, but as we've seen, they aren't too big on rematches, except for with Slytherin. And whichever twin it is that's talking to him says, you've never not caught the snitch. There had to be a one time you didn't get it. Guys, he passed out. Stop making him think that he failed or lost on his own. There was interference. I don't know. I'm probably bugging you guys, but that's all I have to say about it. That's all I have to say about Quidditch in this chapter. It's unfair. It's unfair to the Gryffindors, all right? Then we have one of my least favorite moments in the book series. Look, don't laugh at me. This kills me. I'm just gonna go ahead and read it. Last paragraph. Harry is informed that his Nimbus 2000 is missing and that it hit the Whomping Willow. So that's where I'm starting here. Harry's insides lurched. The Whomping Willow was a very violent tree that stood alone in the middle of the grounds. And, he said, dreading the answer. Well, you know the Whomping Willow, said Ron. It doesn't like being hit. Professor Flitwick brought it back just before you came around, said Hermione in a very small voice. Slowly, she reached down for a bag at her feet, turned it upside down, and tipped a dozen bits of splintered wood and twig onto the bed, the only remains of Harry's faithful, finally beaten broomstick. So not only was Harry attacked and affected by his worst fear, Dementors, He lost the Quidditch match, passed out, almost died, and now his broomstick has been destroyed. I hate this, you guys. And look, Harry, here's my reason that it bothers me so much. Harry's home life, as we know, was horrible, is horrible. He grew up without any true family or friends, and like his wand, his broom, these things that he was able to take home with him were meaningful, useful, unique to him, very, very special in his life. And he bonded with these things. But it just kills me. I hate that this happened. And I just really feel for Harry here. And not that I have to say this because it's pretty obvious, but I am nostalgic. There are things that are important to me that if I lost them would make me very, very upset. And so I just feel for Harry here. So that's it. Before I go, I do have an article for this week that goes along with this video and focuses on a specific topic. You can find that in the description box below. I hope that you enjoy it. Yeah, and for next time, read chapter 10, The Marauder's Map. Oh gosh, we're getting into chapters that have just such fascinating topics. And this chapter is 30 pages. Like, how are we gonna cover this in one video? Yeah, it's gonna be exciting. And I'll just see you next time for that. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel to keep up with all the videos that are coming out, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.